Morning, as we go to Chita. So today we start the last Parsha, Parshas Vayechi in the book of Genesis, book of Bereshis. We are holding first reading of Parshas Vayechi, which is on chapter 47, the book of Genesis, chapter 47, verse 28. Vayechi Yaakov lived at Mitzrayim, the land of Egypt. Shvav Esek Shana, he lived there for 17 years. Vayehi Yimei Yaakov, and the life of Yaakov was Shnei Chayev, the years of his life was Sheva Shamin, Vaboim Shama, Vamashan, 147 years. Rashi says, why is this section closed? It's the middle of a chapter, completely closed, because as soon as the father Jacob passed away, the eyes and the hearts of Israel were closed, became dark, because the misery of slavery for the Egyptians started the subjugation of the Jewish people, and the Gala started. End of the exile of and number two is Yaakov Avinu wanted to reveal the end of the exile. He wanted to tell him Mashiach is coming, but it was concealed from him. The Eibush didn't want to allow him to tell it. But he can make Yisrael, and they came very close to Yaakov to pass away. By Yikra of Neli Yosef, he called the son Yosef. If you find kindness in my eyes, put your hand underneath my thigh, and do for me a chesed that is true. Here the Gemara establishes that it's a chesed shel emes, as Rashi is going to say, do not bury me in the land of Egypt. Rashi says, everyone who comes, whoever stated drawn near to die, did not attain the lifespan of his forefathers. Isaac lived to 180. Jacob lived to 147. Connection Dov and expression also draws near his mention, because father he lived for 400 years, and he only lived 70 years. Yosef, Rashi says, the one who had ability to do it, to take him out of Mitzrayim. Simna Yadcha, take your hand. It's explained by Avram Avinu, he did the same thing. And Yosef was meant to swear on the mitzvah, the circumcision. That's the Yamis. Rashi says, loving kindness is done with the dead is called a true loving kindness, because one does not expect payment or reward. Unless of Gireinu Mitzrayim, Rashi says, because ultimately the soil will turn into ice, which will crawl under my body. That's number one. Number two, because those who die outside the land of Israel will be resurrected, except with the pain of rolling through the underground passages. And number three, so the Egyptians would not make him a deity. And I want to be buried with my ancestors. I want you to carry me out of Egypt, because and I want you to bury me in their grave. And Jesus said, I'll do what you say. Now Lachi says, I will lie, the vav of Vishachafti. It's connected to the beginning of the previous verse. Place me now, your hand beneath my thigh, and swear, for I am destined to lie with my forefather Vishachafti. Make sure that I want to be buried there. You should carry out of me in Egypt. Carry me out of Egypt. Can't say that, however, I will lie with my fathers means let me rest with my forefathers in the cave. Because afterwards it's written, I shall carry me out of Egypt, and you'll bury me in the grave. So you see that's connected to the previous verse. It's not connected that he's going to go to Gan Eden, but it's connected to the verse that he wants to go out of Mitzrayim. So he said, no, I want you to make a vow. And he made his vow. Yisrael, and then Yaakov bowed to the head of the bed. Now she said, Yisrael, although the lion is king, when the time of the fox, Yosef now has the power, bow down to him. Why did he bow to the head of his bed? He turned it around his head to the side of the Shekhinah, the Gemara says. But here the sages deduced that the Shekhinah is at the head of the sick person's bed. Another word, Aleish Hamita, to the head of the bed, he prostrated, he bowed down to God because his offerings were perfect. And so far, none of them were wicked. So he was pushed happy with his bed, so to say, as an evidence of the fact that Yosef was king. And furthermore, even though he was captured amongst the Goyim, he remained steadfast in his righteousness. Chapter 48, verse number 1, came after this time, Yosef was told to Yosef, behold, your father is very sick. He took his two sons, as Menashe and Ephraim. Now she says, one of the tellers, this is like a short verse. Some say, however, this was Ephraim, his son, who was accustomed to study with Yaakov Avinu. They used to have a chavrusa together, Yaakov and Ephraim. When Yaakov became ill in the land of Goshen, Ephraim went to Egypt to tell his father. Why did he take his two sons? He should bless these two children before he dies. Yaakov, they told Yaakov, they told him, behold, your son is coming, your son Yosef is coming. Yischazik Yisrael, and Yisrael summoned himself. He strengthened and sat up on his bed. Now she says, again, Vayagid, somebody told him, it doesn't say who it is. Yischazik Yisrael, Amar. He said, even though he's my son, he is the king, and I'll bestow honor upon him. And here we learn that you must bestow honor upon royalty. As Moshe bestowed honor upon royalty, then all the servants of yours will come down to me. He didn't say you're going to come down to me. And so Elijah, we find that he bestowed honor upon royalty. As is written, he girded his loins and he ran after Achav until he came to Yisrael. So you see, you show honor to royalty or to rulership. Yaakov said to Yosef, God revealed himself to me in Luz, Be'eretz Canaan, in the land of Canaan. He blessed me. He said to me, I'm going to make you fruitful, and you're going to multiply. I'm going to make you a congregation of nations. I'm going to give you this land to your offsprings that will come after you, with the Salem, an everlasting inheritance. Now she said, if you announced to me that another congregation of people was to be destined for me, a congregation nation shall become from my existence, meaning three nations. By a nation, he promised me by the birth of Binyamin. A congregation of nations means two additional to Binyamin. And there was no other children. I had no other children, but no other son was born to me. So therefore, when the Abishah told me you're going to have a congregation of nations, I learned that this was one of my tribes, one of my sons are going to be divided. They're going to become two tribes. And now I realize who they are, and that's Ephraim and Menashe. So now I'm giving this gift that God gave to me to you. And therefore, you two sons that are born to you in the land of Egypt, until they have come to the land of Egypt, till I've come here, Lihaim, they're becoming my sons, Ephraim and Menashe. From now on, Ephraim and Menashe, Reuven, Shimon, Yili, they're going to be to me like Reuven and Shimon. Now, before I came to you, meaning those who were born since I left, you left. Lihaim, they are counted among the rest of my sons to take share of the land. This was a major thing. Because he divided Yosef into two, now they got extra land. One exactly each of my sons. But if you have any other children, after them, which he didn't, shall be to you. Al Shem Achem, they're going to go under one of the brothers, Yikru ben Nachlas. Now she says, if you have more children, they'll not be counted amongst my sons, but be included amongst the tribes, Ephraim and Menashe. And will now have a separate name like each of these two tribes regarding inheritance. Now, although the land of Israel is divided according to the heads of population of each tribe, as written, to the large tribe we shall increase the inheritance, and each man received the equal share. So what was accepted for the firstborn, Reuben? Nevertheless, only these Ephraim and Asher were called tribes regarding the ability to cast a lot in the land according to the number of names of tribes, and regarding having the prince of each tribe and a group of tribes in the desert for this one and for that one. So it's not, ultimately every Jew got his chelik, but ultimately they were counted amongst the 12 tribes according to the traveling of the Jews, as we'll say later, and according to the inheritance of the piece of land were called Manasseh and Ephraim. And when I came up to Padan Aram, Rachel died on me in the land of Canaan. When I was traveling, before I came, the stretch of land came to Ephros. I buried her on the road side going to Ephrat. He Beis Lechem, I buried her in the Beis Lechem. Now she says, what does this pasuk mean? Yaakov says to Yosef, even though I'm burdening you to take me to be buried in Canaan, I'm asking you a big thing, and I did not do so for your mother. So you might say, you didn't do it for my mother. Why should I do it for you? Kivras Aretz, and I'm sure you know that the measure of land, which is 2,000 cubits, equivalent to the measure of Shabbat's boundary, so it was not that far even. Beis Lechem is not so far from Hebron, according to the statement of Shur Hadashin. Tina Metillah should be considered parenthetically. The following is Jacob's explanation why he did not bury Rachel in the Kedem HaPeleh. Should not say that the rains prevented me from transporting her to burying her in Hebron, for it was dry season, when the earth was riddled and full of holes, like a sieve. So therefore, I didn't bury her for not that reason, not because I was lazy. I didn't want to take her to bury her in the cave of Machpelah. I did not take her even to Bethlehem, to bring her into the land, to inherit, to inhabit the region of the land. And I know that you hold it against me, so that she should be with assistance. So the reason is because I buried her, she should be assistance for her children, Be'ezat Hashem. When pass by, Rachel will emerge from her grave and weep and beg mercy for them. As it says, a voice is heard on high. And the Rachel is crying for her children. And the Holy One, blessed be, answers her. This is the reward for your work, says the Lord. And the children shall return to their borders. So that's why I buried it there. Unkelas, however, renders kivras aretz keroya ara, meaning the measure of plowing in a day, other than measure of plowing a land. And I say that they are people of biblical times that had a measurement called one full furrow, which is the measure of plowed land. We say he plowed kiriv, the plow again. Yaakov Yisrael saw the children of Yosef. He said, who are these? Now she says he attempted to bless them, but the Shekhinah withdrew from him because he saw Yeravam v'Achav Lotzis Ephraim. He saw that these two terrible kings are going to come out of Ephraim. One of them is Yeravam ben Avot, v'Achav, the one who Eliyahu Novi had to respect. Lotzis Ephraim come at time. Ve'Yehu Ubana v'Menashe. Yehu, another kingdom, will come out of Menashe. He said, Mehechin Yotzeil. Where did these kids come from that they do not do unworthy of a blessing? Yosef said, they're my children, which God gave me with this or here. So he said, bring him to me and I'll bless him. Now he says, Yosef showed him that he had a document of betrothal to his wife and a ksuba to his wife. And Yosef prayed for this situation. He wanted his children to be blessed. But Nachal Ruach HaKodesh and the Spirit of God came back to Yaakov. So that's why it says, Rashi says later on, it says, and I, the Holy One, trained into Ephraim. He took them into his arms. I trained my spirit into Jacob for Ephraim's sake, and he took them into his arms. And that completes the Chumash for today. We now go to the Tanya of the day. We're holding on chapter 9 of Tanya. Chapter 9. Yesterday was a whole chapter of Tanya. The Alter Rebbe talks about Gehenim, the concept of rectification that an neshama needs to go through if he does Avedas, does sins, God forbid. Previous chapter, Alter Rebbe elaborates on the composition of a Jewish soul with its 10 holy powers of the soul garments, the animals, and his animal soul, with the corresponding 10 powers of the 3 garments originating Klippa, this covering. The present chapter, the Alter Rebbe will discuss the battle. And now we come to the concept of the Mechama between the 2 souls. Abode of the animal soul, which comes from a klippa, from a covering that shines, b'cholish Yisrael, meaning the place of the animal soul, the nefesh, resides and is most manifest in his heart, to believe. As mentioned in the previous chapter, the animal soul is predominantly emotional, and the heart is the seat of the emotions. Therefore, the animal soul is compared to like a fire. B'chola asmali, he's, so to say, more specifically, the boat of the animal soul is in left vertical. Shumali dam, which is full of blood. Yesiv, as the pasuk says, K'adam hu nefesh, as it's written, the blood is the soul, indicating that the soul resides in the vertical filled with blood, which is the left vertical. Now, but the animal soul is not the blood, but it's the spiritual energy within the blood, because the animal soul resides in the heart. Therefore, all lust, all lust, tefaris and boasting, ego, vakas and anger, b'dameim, and all these things that we have 7 emotions. Chesed, gvura, tferes, netzachai, the negative of the animal soul. Him belev is in the heart, it's emotional. Umahaleh, but ultimately from the heart, it travels and spreads throughout the entire body. And the sad part is, and ultimately it comes to the head. It's not, instead of Mayach Shalat Alev, the mind rules the heart. It's the opposite. It's the rule, the heart rules his mind. The chashiv or lahada, the forces, so to say, since I'm so emotionally involved, I start to meditate about them, these things, and to become cunning, even how to even out whatever my anger is, I become more anger. I create a bigger anger. So to like the blood itself. The source is in the heart. And from the heart it circulates into all the organs of the body. Ultimately, the blood reaches the brain. Similarly, soul and nefesh, clothes itself in the blood, abides in the heart and spreads out there to pervade one's entire body. Baruch Hashem, you're healthy. Thus, in case of the animal soul, the brain, intellectual faculty too, instead of motivating the heart and guiding it, merely reacts to it and serves only as a clever tool for realizing the passion of the heart. And that's what happens. That's usually what happens. So we don't think with our brains, we're thinking with our heart. But the opposite is the place in the abode of the godly soul, who is in your brains. That's where it resides. And from there it comes to all the other limbs. So the divine soul is essentially is intellectual. It's intellect. It's all based on how much you comprehend the meditation that you have. And from the brain, the seat is a seat of intellect. And the divine soul resides also in the heart, in the right side. There's no aspect of blood, it's less blood. Blood ultimately goes through there, but it's less blood. That's why it says in the verse, heart of a wise man, meaning fine soul. contrast to the animal soul. Specifically, the evil inclination, the Eitz Hara, which is described as old fool, is Allah is on the right side. So the animal soul is brought down is called an old fool, but a heart of a wise man is to his right. We thus see the divine soul resides not only in the brain but also in the right vertical of the heart, because it has to be Maya Shal to the left, so it has to ultimately come down into the heart. As he did when speaking with the animal soul, the Alter Rebbe again singles out the heart from amongst all other organs. Having said the divine soul extends to all organs, he mentions the heart specifically, and also in the heart. Unlike the other organs, in which merely is an extension of the divine soul, is manifest. The heart is the divine soul itself. Its emotional faculties is revealed, because we need the heart. We can't leave the heart totally to the animal soul. We need, it's a very important thing, that there is moyach and is lev. My godly soul needs to have intellect and needs to have heart. The avas Hashem kirish be'es, and the revelation of the heart is divine soul residing in the brain, is man's burning fire. Misalev es belev maskilim, which flares up in the heart of those who are intellectual, who utilize the power of Chachma to awaken the heart. Hamevinim mizbeinin, those who understand and reflect, mizbeinin, meditation, with the faculty of understanding, by which they understand the matter in all its detail and ramification. In the knowledge in their brain, meaning with the faculty of das. So they have chachma bina das, by which they immerse themselves and synthesize themselves, in which they understand. Thus the love flares up in the heart. And those who utilize all faculties of chachma bina das, wisdom, knowledge, understanding, are matters that arouse this love, meaning contemplation of God's greatness, as the Alter Rebbe will soon tell us. We need to learn as a Bainli, for surely, to become a Bainli, we need to learn how to awaken up this Ava. That's in our heart. It's there already. As the Alter Rebbe will say, we all have Ava Misuteres. So we all have Ava. It's not Ava that is only Ava for the Nefesh HaBahamas. There's Ava for the Nefesh Elikis. It's important that we know that the Nefesh Elikis has Ava. We just need to awaken up this Ava. I explained in the 3rd chapter that understanding the greatness of God, Psukkah de Zimmer, that's why you have all Psukkah de Zimmer and davening, is this love then, is one example of divine souls reaching from the brain into the heart. So, similarly, another deeper way in which the heart emotion gives expression to the presence of the divine soul in the brain, the gladness of the heart at apprehending the beauty of God and the majesty of his glory. Gladness is aroused when the divine soul, the intellect, which the Alter Rebbe, borrowing a phrase from the Ecclesiastes, describes as a wise man's eyes, which are in his head, meaning in the brain, harboring his wisdom and understanding, that when you are smart, you have the capability to use out your chachma bina das. That's why it's chachma eina bereisha. The Alter Rebbe will explain later that eina means you have the capability to see. With your brain, you have the capability not only to understand something, you're able to see eina bereisha. He has his eyes in his head. Staklim bikoda the malka. What does it mean? With your eyes, you can brush with your intellect, you can gaze intently at the glory of the King and the beauty of his unfathomable, infinite, and boundless greatness. Then the heart, if you can be able to see, that's what it says, the Abish says in the Pasuk, the A. It's not enough to only have in your mind understanding. You have to bring your understanding, and that's the power of Chachma Bina, and especially Das, that we can bring our brain to be able to see it with our eyes. That's why it says Chacham Eina B'Reisha. If you're a real Chacham, you have the capability of eyes, able to give your eyes in your head. The closest to your brain is your eyes. As I explained in another time. So gazing in mind with the mind eyes, meaning not only to understand the greatness, but also to perceive it as though seeing it with your very eyes. Such a perception arouses a great joy in your heart, and that creates ava. And this joy, like the love spoken early, is a direct result of the manifestation of the intellect, the divine soul residing in the brain. And ultimately, when we learn later the two ikir, we learn later that the two ikir, the two most important part of the heart is ava and yira. And once a person affects his avas Hashem and yiras Hashem, creates a true ava to God and a true honest of God, automatically all the other middays, all the other 5 attributes will automatically go with it, such as the fear of God, like organized in Chabad, wisdom, understanding, knowledge in the brain. And that's the ultimate journey that we need to accomplish, is that it should be Mayach Shalat Alalev, that we should awaken up the heart. The godly soul is there to awaken up the Avas Hashem, Yiras Hashem, and the beauty of God, and the Netzach, the victory inside the foundation, ultimately Malchus, bring it down into a reality. This unbelievable love that I've created and I see within my mind. And that completes the Tanya of the day. Today is the 12th day of the month, which is chapter 66 to chapter 68, these 3 chapters of Tillim. If you do these 2 chapters, you would do the chitas of the day. I invite you all, in Hashem, at 10 a.m. We're going to continue learning Tanya, Chassidus. I invite you all to the Chabad house. It's going to be today at the Chabad, because there's no Talmud Torah. So you can come to the Chabad house, or on Zoom, or on Torah Direct. I wish you all a wonderful and beautiful and happy day. See you all tomorrow, 8 o'clock. We'll continue.